Meet Me in London. Book by Georgia Toffolo. Chapter 15. Even in a helicopter it took too long to get to the hospital, as far as Oliver was concerned. Time was running out. He had too much to do, too much to say to his father, and he went over and over it in his head on the flight. But now they were here, his words fled. He steadied himself for bad news. Whatever happened, he would not lose control. His mother ran up the corridor towards him and gripped his arm, her features hollowed out by worry. "Ollie, Victoria. Thank God you're here. The doctors have been with him for hours and they won't tell me anything." "What happened?" "We were just talking, then he suddenly went pale and limp and I called for help. Then the staff rushed in with extra equipment, shooed me out of the room and left me here." Here, being the plush waiting area at the side of the ward. It looked more like a hotel with its lime green and pale wood decor, individual side rooms, and personal menus, but inside the bedrooms the patients were as sick and frail as in any other hospital. Oliver looked round for a member of staff, but they were all in other rooms caring for patients. He wrapped his mum in a hug, pressing a kiss to her head. It wasn't something they usually did, and she looked up at him, confused by his sudden, uncharacteristic affection, but he hung on the way. Victoria had held him, knowing it would make his mother feel better. "They're focusing on him, Mum. I'm sure they'll come and give us some news as soon as they have any." 2 hours, Oliver. I've been standing here for 2 hours. His mother's voice was cracking, and he could see she was nearing breaking point. "I'll find out what's happening." He let her go and knocked on his father's door. A nurse came out of the room pushing a trolley. "Sorry it took so long. You can go in now. But please be quiet as Eric's sleeping. The doctor's going to— Oh, here he is now." Dr. Malik came out of the room and closed the door quietly behind him. He opened his mouth to speak, but Stella got in first. "Is he going to be okay?" "It was just an allergic reaction." "I say just, it was quite a bad one. We had to give him 2 shots of adrenaline and we've been monitoring him very closely. But he's back with us. I have to be honest, we were quite worried about him for a few minutes back there." The cardiologist shook his head wearily and explained, "New drugs. Can't always be sure how a patient's going to respond." He wanted to try them, Stella insisted. She was pale but dry-eyed, holding everything in like a well-trained Russell. Said he'd give anything a try for a few more years. Now I don't know if we'll have a few more hours. He's definitely better than he was, but he's not out of the woods yet. We'll keep a very close eye on him. The next 24 hours are crucial." "Okay, thanks for being so candid, Dr. Malik." Touch and go. Oliver thought about all the things he should have said to his dad, all the things they could have done together if Russell and company hadn't eaten up all their time. He wasn't going to be that kind of father. He was going to devote weekends and evenings and holidays to his kids. He was going to make time count. And he was going to make what little time he had left with his father count too. As if she understood what he was feeling, Victoria's hand crept into his. And her tenderness crept into his chest too. Just having her here gave him strength. He'd never known how it could feel to share a burden with someone. To be able to lean into them and feel the heavy weight lift, even if only for a short time. He hadn't known it was even possible to share joy too. But just watching her in the helicopter, he'd been having as much fun as she was. He walked his mother into the room and sat her down on one side of the bed, got a very worried-looking Victoria to sit in a chair across from Stella, and sat next to her, still holding her hand and not wanting to let go. He wondered if he needed to be checked out by the cardiologist too. His heart was pounding. He willed it to slow. Russell's kept a tight control over themselves. He could do that. He was in charge now. He let his mum fuss over his father for a few minutes. pulling the duvet up to his chest, straightening the sheet, tidying the tray table. Her hands fluttered, busy. It reminded him of Victoria and the way she talked with her hands. It was amazing that even coming from completely different worlds, these two women were similar. When he saw his mum looking round for more fixing and fussing to do, he stood, put his hands on her shoulders and said, "Mum, you need to get some rest. You look exhausted." "I'm not going to leave him." She was resolute. "I always thought my stubborn streak was from Dad, but clearly I was wrong." "Did you eat?" As if to raise the stubborn stakes higher, she crossed her arms. "No. I'm not hungry." He smiled and shook his head. "Neither of my parents want to eat anything. What am I going to do?" "Phone Antoine." Victoria's voice was low, as if she didn't want to intrude. "What?" Victoria spoke louder. "Phone Antoine and get him to send over some of your favorite things. That might help get your parents' appetites back." She made asking for help sound so easy. "He knows you well enough to do this for you. Phone him." "No. I couldn't." "How many favors have you ever asked of anyone?" At the shake of his head she frowned. "You Russells really do need to learn to ask for help. Phone your chef friend and ask him to deliver some food. He can only say no." Of course, Antoine didn't say anything except, "How quickly do you need it?" And soon enough a courier arrived with delicious-smelling meatballs and his mother's favorite lobster ravioli. After making sure Eric was sleeping and safe, they took the food through to the waiting area and had a feast. Oliver watched his mother's shoulders sag as she put her fork down. "You can't look after Dad if you're exhausted. There's a relative's room down the corridor, Mum. We just walked past it. I'll see if it's available and you can sleep there. I will call you if there's any change. I promise I'll stay here all night." "Me too," Victoria said, slipping her arm around his waist and hugging him to her side. He leaned against her, his heart filled with gratitude. "You don't have to." "I know." She put her palm to his jaw and smiled softly. "But I want to." So, he settled his mother and came back to his father's room. His heart stuttered as he walked in and saw Victoria stroking his dad's hand. The repeated rush of affection wasn't what he'd expected when he'd planned this deal, nor the wealth of emotions she stirred in him. And he didn't know what to do about any of it. He was lost in her, in this and in the swirling feelings about his father. He'd never felt so much as he had these last few days. A nursing assistant wheeled a large chair into his father's room and gave them a duvet. "Sorry, there isn't any space for two big chairs, but you could take it in turns to get some shut-eye on this." They sat for a long time side by side, hands clasped together, just watching Eric and listening to the whirs and clicks of the machines. His breathing was regular and the nursing staff seemed pleased that he was. "No. I'll stay here." The way she'd held him on that street had made him realize he didn't have to face this alone, any of it. He had her, his mother, even his cousin to share some of the load. He just had to ask. Hell, that was an eye-opener. She stirred, leaning her head against his thigh, and he stroked her hair. Soon there was nothing but the sound of beeps and whooshes and the regular in-out snuffle of his dad's snores. "There's enough room for you here," Victoria whispered, as she shifted to one edge of the large cushioned chair. "Slide on down. I thought you were asleep." "Just thinking." She lifted herself up and he slid into the chair, settling herself against him in the dark, the only light an eerie orange glow from the LED monitor lights. Having her here in his arms felt right. Good. He nuzzled the top of her head, inhaling the citrus shampoo smell and wondering how it was that he got hot just holding her. He was acutely aware of the press of her body against his, the rise and fall of her breasts against his chest. Having her skin touch his made his whole body prickle with need. He wanted to make love to her right here. That was clearly impossible, and he was officially just going to go insane. With lust. But he did kiss her, because he couldn't not. Soft and giving, the kiss filled his heart, and he swore he felt their souls entwining until they were enmeshed and unbreakable. He regretted that he couldn't take her to bed in his Parisian apartment, but this was the next best thing. She was here. It was lovely. Really. Her hand rested on the top of his thigh. It was a lovely idea. He closed his eyes as an inappropriate lust ricocheted through him. This was not the time, the place, or the conversation for that. Do you still want to back out? She glanced over to his father and shrugged her shoulders minutely, as if it was all beyond her control. I want to help, Ollie. Which wasn't exactly the answer he'd been hoping for. But she wanted to stay, and that was something. Had the kisses meant nothing? He knew they hadn't. She was scared of something, was it? Commitment. The possibility of being rejected again, like her ex had rejected her? Hell, Ollie controlled a feral urge to go around to that damned tailor shop and take the man outside. But then what? She'd still have those emotional scars. He just needed to keep building her trust. His useless cousin and his mother weren't helping. A whirring noise made her sit up quickly, jolting him backwards as she turned her head this way and that. What's that? She shuddered, eyes darting from machine to machine. Sorry. A nurse burst in, fiddled with his father's heart monitor pads. Happens sometimes if they get unstuck. No drama. Then she rushed out again. Seemingly satisfied there was no emergency, Victoria settled back down. He felt the hard hammer of her heart against his chest as she shivered and said, God, I hate hospitals. I hate the smell. I hate the perpetual semi-darkness. The electronic sounds. Long time. There were some internal injuries they had to deal with. And I was recalcitrant, shall we say, about recovering. What was she saying? He read between the lines. You didn't want to get better. She shook her head. He tried to encourage her to say more, but she looked away. He touched her chin and turned her to look at him again. He could see fear there as the memories bubbled up to the surface. Hey, I want to know. I want to know you, V. Here. Now. Her arms snaked round her chest. She was closing in on herself, and she didn't have to. He took hold of one hand and clasped it. You said earlier that I wasn't alone. Neither are you. I want to help, and I think you need to vent it. Tell me. She took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. Grasping control, she spoke quietly to the dark, keeping her eyes fixed on a spot somewhere in the distance. In the past. Her heart thudded and her limbs tensed. And, for a woman who constantly moved, she was eerily still. It took me a long time to get over it. I was in the emergency department. And they were working on Zoe right next to me. I don't know where Lily and Marley were. I can't remember. There are a lot of gaps. Her hand went to her head as if she was trying to force out a memory. I remember bright lights, a lot of panic, people rushing and machines blaring. I heard the surgery. But I woke up later in so much pain and not knowing who had get hurt. Although, he didn't have to ask. Every time they talked about the accident, she subconsciously rubbed her stomach. He placed his palm on her belly and she pressed her hand over it, squeezing so hard he just knew she was reliving that night again. He scooped her into his arms and kissed her cheeks, her forehead, her mouth. You're so brave. Not brave at all. Her eyes welled with tears and she smudged them away. I wanted to hide away for so long, I couldn't bring myself to look my friends in the eye. But they came to see me, refused to give up on me. Cajoled me along. I would hope so. Friends don't give up on each other. I would never. He kissed her then, unable to stop himself. She looked so dejected and hurt. And yet so vibrant and lovable. She pulled away. You don't really know me. I know enough. I know you would never willingly hurt anyone. That you still blame yourself for everything. That you put distance between yourself and others because you're scared you might get hurt. She thought about it for a moment. Yes, I do. You don't have to worry about that with me. I know. She stopped abruptly and swung round quickly as his dad turned over in bed, then started snoring again. She gave Oliver a soft, sad smile. I just don't want to hurt you, or your parents. You would never. Besides, I'm doing a fine job of that on my own. My mother tries too hard and I push her away, and my father wants me to live at the office. There's not a lot of affection going on. I don't agree. You came back here with no hesitation, because you love them. Took control. Refused to crack. Her eyebrows rose. You know, it is okay to crack. No, it isn't. Not when people rely on you. He kept his voice as low as he could and knew his words came out fast, but he couldn't stop them. There was something about Victoria that made him want to talk about the things that mattered. He knew she listened without judgment. You think my mother wanted to see me in tears? You think she isn't burdened enough without having to console her son? I think you can all admit to being frightened right now. That is not the Russell way, at least not for the men. That is not how I was brought up. We have to brush our emotions under the carpet, pretend everything is fine even though things are falling apart. Russells take control, not lose it. So, no, I cannot crack. Victoria sighed sadly. Your mum is aching for closeness, Ollie. She just wants to love you, and I think she feels as if she's lost you, and that's why she came to see me, to try to connect with you, through me. She told me she never wanted to send you away to school. She just wants to spend time with you before it's too late. She didn't want to send me away, but she just patted me on the head and told me not to cry. So why would she tell Victoria something different? Had his mother just gone along with what she thought was the right thing to do? Being a loyal Russell wife. Had she cried later? It explained a lot about his mother's more recent smothering. She wanted to make up for the days she'd lost when he was away at school. Just being here, seeing his father so frail and his mother so anxious was a wake-up call. They needed to fix things before it was too late. They're not going to be around forever. We need to work on our communication, right? That will make her very happy. And you too, I think. Victoria sighed. Exhaustion nipping her features. You all know you love each other, you just have to show it. I'll try. Hugging isn't the kind of thing we do freely in our house. Then you should definitely do more of it. Did you know that it's scientifically proven that a 20-second hug can reduce stress, lower blood pressure and increase happy hormones? He squeezed her against his side and kissed the top of her head. Now, that is sounding very attractive. She held him tightly and was quiet for a moment, then said, very quietly, and you have to tell them you want out of Russell and company. Dread wound through his gut, immediately cancelling out the hug benefits. What? For your own sake. You have to tell them how you feel about taking over the company. And then what? I don't even know what I want to do. She smiled secretively. Your mum told me that your dad wanted to be an engineer. No, that's a surprise. I did not know that. But he followed the family line. Don't live your life with regret. Don't get caught up in duty without living your dreams too. And don't leave it until you have your family and babies, because you'll feel like you have to give them security. If you're going to jump, Ollie, it has to be soon. Usually he thrived on time pressure, but not this. I'll think about it. After the opening. Once things are settled down. Don't leave it until it's too late. My father's too sick for me to make any hasty decisions. Even though the work gave him little satisfaction, he couldn't walk away now. Things were too complicated. After New Year, maybe. It's always so busy until then. Stop making excuses. She twisted to look him straight in the eye. What are you scared of, Oliver Russell? Scared? His hackles rose. He wasn't scared of any damn thing. But he was blocked. He couldn't see past the looming pressure of taking the helm. At Russell and Company, it felt like a heavy weight on his chest, and sometimes he couldn't breathe when he thought about being stuck in that role for the rest of his working life. Making the wrong choice. She frowned. There is no wrong choice, apart from staying in a job you don't like just because of expectation. You can do this, Ollie. If you want. You have to live your best life, not the life they've groomed you for. He glanced over to make sure his father couldn't hear this, but Russell Sr. was still snoring. You don't understand what it's like. I've been training for this since the day I could hold a pencil. My father was keen for me to be as involved as possible, just the way he had been with his father. As soon as I was old enough, he had me working in the post room. We don't even have one of those anymore. He'd never bared his soul to anyone like this before, but Victoria made it possible to actually say these things. Times change. People change too, Ollie. You could choose to do something that makes your heart sing. You need to walk away. She made it all sound so easy, but she wasn't the one doing the jumping. Or disappointing her family. But then again, she'd also been the one who'd stared into bleakness and made a choice to do something positive with her life. No one had ever talked so intimately to him or about him before. No one had stood by him or hurt with him either. Especially with a hatred of hospitals and for people she barely knew. He stroked her hair, his chest full of light for her and worry for his family. He was hot and cold. Stressed to the max being here when he should have been ticking off his to-do list for the opening and yet didn't want to be anywhere else. The only thing keeping him together was Victoria. He rested his chin gently on her head, tucked her close and closer. His body was alive and restless, having her here, tortured by the press of her breasts, feeling her heat around him, wishing he could feel her heat around him for real. His body prickled. She moved against him and the crackle of electricity between them sparked again. Later, he whispered into her hair. Later. She nodded and smiled sleepily. He watched her breathing. Became slow and regular. I love you. It hit him out of the blue. A thought and a feeling so intense he didn't know what to do with it. A hot golden glow in the center of his chest. Strange and new. And he breathed in a difficult, ragged breath. It was too much. Unfamiliar. He didn't want it. Didn't want to depend on her. Didn't want to feel this and then lose it in a few days' time. Didn't want to fall into the comfort and excitement and the happiness she gave to him and get lost in her. Didn't want to walk away from it either. 50 years. It hadn't even been 50 days. Hell. How did you know? How? He rubbed his forehead with the heel of his hand. What if he got it wrong? What if she walked away like they'd agreed? It wasn't as if he could put this feeling into words for her. She had a plan. They had a deal. Until the 1st of December and no more. She didn't want the money or the helicopters or the celebrity. She didn't want marriage or kids. She'd been at pains to underline that. She was already scared. And hell, so was he, now. I love you. The glow didn't dim. It flickered and shone and filled his chest. And was the last thing he felt as the pull of sleep became too much to fight. He's going to be fine. He just needs to rest and build up his strength. Oh, that's such good news. Victoria exhaled the breath she'd been holding ever since the cardiologist had walked into the room for the morning ward round. It had been a very disrupted night. Not just because of the unfamiliar noises and constant interruptions from the nurses doing their checks, but also because of the closeness she'd shared with Oliver. Every time she prepared herself to let go, the connection between them tightened. Stella clapped her hands. Did you hear the man, Eric? No more work. Talk. You have to focus on getting better. Oliver's dad was sitting in bed propped up by pillows. He needed a shave, his skin was sallow and he had huge bruises under his eyes, but he huffed weakly. Work talk makes me feel better. Well, you're too old to work, so we're going to start learning how to slow down a bit. I want more time with you, Eric, not less. We need to live. To see Oliver's children. I'm going to pop out and buy some Sudoku books. And I'm investigating Tai Chi classes for when we go home. She picked up a glossy brochure and waved it at him. I found this in the relative's room. It sounds like something we can do together. Victoria and Oliver are doing the fashion show and it's making them both happy, I can see it. It's time we did something that wasn't just work. Well, recognizing they needed to do more relaxing together was a good thing. But again, the mention of Oliver's children. Victoria took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. This wasn't about her, she reminded herself. It was about this family. They seemed to be taking on board the things she'd suggested. Eric grimaced. Ollie, lad. Save me. What did you teach me, Dad? Only enter into arguments you're going to win. But Tai Chi? With a load of pensioners? Eric grumbled, clearly feeling a little better. I'm going to go mad. Well, you're going to go mad with, Stella read from the brochure. Lower blood pressure, improved balance and enhanced sleep. A good handle on my bank balance helps me sleep very well indeed. The old man tutted. The thought of having to relax and retire made him seem much more determined to get better. It's time to let it go, Eric, his wife said. Maybe you could do some of that tinkering in the shed like you used to do before we got married. Tinkering? The old man frowned. Don't know what you're talking about. I know. It's a long time ago. Stella smiled. Remember when you used to make things? Dad used to make things? Ollie jumped in, animated. What kind of things? He made the cot you slept in when you were born and then, Stella looked at her hands. We got too busy with the company. It happens. Ollie shrugged, but he looked suddenly smitten with his dad. And also, kind of sad that he'd never met this other father who'd been happy making things. A cot. Victoria sighed. Where had they lost their way? When had they stopped paying attention to each other? But in the end it didn't matter where they'd gone wrong, because they were finding their way back to each other now. There's a group of men in the village who run something called a man shed. They get together and do things for the local community, build play parks for the childcare center. Stella clutched her husband's hand. You'd enjoy that. Working with your hands again. Doing something nice for the children, like Ollie and Victoria are doing for her design students. Man shed. Eric looked as if he was about to tut again, but he sat and thought, and as he did his eyes glittered. Victoria, you have a lot to answer for. Oh, wow. Victoria couldn't hide her joy at seeing them talking like this. Properly learning about each other after all this time. Sorry, not sorry, Mr. Russell. Eric looked at his wife. I'll think about it. She patted his hand but didn't push. In the meantime, you can build your strength up with Tai Chi. Eric shook his head. Does it say anywhere that I have to be teetotal? No. Nothing here. Good. Ask the lovely nurse to bring me a gin. Ollie laughed. It's breakfast time, Dad. It's 5 o'clock somewhere in the world. We'll leave you to argue that one out with the medics. See you later. Oliver pressed a kiss to his father's head and the old man looked up at him in surprise. Ollie then wrapped his mother in a hug. Be good. Don't argue. I'll be back later. I love you both. Victoria watched with a warm fuzzy feeling in her heart. He was trying. They were all trying. They stepped outside, blinking into a snowy wonderland, and Victoria took a deep breath. Being wrapped in Ollie all night had been wonderful. But she needed to face the day and her never-ending job list, and the confusion about where they stood now. Having spent the night bundled up against him, her body felt alive. Relishing his every touch, his thigh against hers, the press of his body. The way he'd stroked her hair, her hand, her cheek. The soft kisses that were about giving and affection. The line they'd straddled but managed to keep a grip on. Now, out here in the fresh air, she felt as if they were moving towards something more, something inevitable that would change her forever. They walked through the frosted streets that were starting to fill up with work and school traffic. Her skin tingled. Her breathing came too fast. Later, he'd said. And she'd agreed. Drunk on exhaustion and lust, she'd agreed because she couldn't imagine not making love with him. But even now in the bright winter morning, nothing had changed. She wanted this man. She gripped his hand. Anticipation wound through her until she felt like a coiled spring. When they reached her front door, he said, "My father made my cot." "I can't believe it." "I know. It's surprising, but lovely to know they cared so much. I'm so glad things are getting back on track for you all." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I can't thank you enough, V. It's all because of you. That's what friends are for, right?" Blinking hard, she looked away. All his family had needed was a gentle push. Friends. Sure. Definitely friends. He smiled and tenderly smoothed down her hair. Something had changed between them. A seismic shift that had taken them from strangers to a deep every-level connection. Later. They were edging closer to their middle-of-the-night promise. Later was now. Her insides fluttered. He looked dark and dangerous and delicious, his black coat and hair a sharp contrast to the silvery white-coated roofs and tree branches. She put her palm to his unshaven jaw. "You must have so much to do. Your blood pressure must be off the scale. Ever thought about Tai Chi?" He laughed and caught her gaze. "My balance is age-appropriate. And I'm not interested in sleeping when I go to bed, especially if you're anywhere nearby." His words stoked her need and she almost moaned as she stared up at him, lost in eyes so dark and misted with sex they bewitched her. As if he felt the same coiled need as she did, he pulled her to him, his hand curving round the back of her neck. Somehow, they moved seamlessly. From tenderness to desire, but always there was so much emotion when it came to him. His mouth was at her throat. "Victoria Scott, you drive me crazy. I spent the whole night trying not to imagine you naked with me under that duvet. Oh, God." Her heart hammered and her body prickled with a longing that stripped her breath. There were so many reasons why they shouldn't take the next step, but it felt inevitable, fated. She wanted him. It was as simple and complicated as that. She pushed herself against him, feeling the tight press of his body, wanting to feel his heat, his hardness, wanting him inside her. "I thought I was going to die if you didn't kiss me again. God, you are amazing. I can't get enough of you," he groaned as his fingers traced along her throat. His mouth moved up her neck to that soft place below her ear that had her curling with desire. She turned her head, desperate to kiss him, but he moved away, just a fraction, and gave her a long, slow smile. Was he trying to drive her completely mad? Unable to wait any longer, she stood on tiptoes to meet his hungry gaze. "Kiss me. God." "Victoria." His mouth slid over hers and, as her balance was very definitely off-kilter when he was around, she fell deep into his kiss, still mesmerized at how one touch from Oliver could make her feel so much better. So alive, so desperate for more. He pressed her hard against the door, his tongue sliding into her mouth, sending jolts of excitement through her. His fingers slid under her sweater, and she writhed at the coolness, arching her back so he could fit his palm over her breast. He trailed a kiss along her throat and whispered, "I know a much better way to relax than Tai Chi. You want me to show you?" Her body buzzed and burned. Yes, she did. She wanted him in her bed. The longer she spent with him, the more she wanted to be with him. Everything, every minute they'd spent together, all the getting to know each other, all the kisses, all the tender talks in the dark of night had led to this moment. She couldn't fight it. Didn't want to. Yes, please, she managed through another hot and hungry kiss. She dragged her mouth from his and jammed her key into the lock, his lips on the back of her neck making her curl into him. She pressed her body back against his and felt the hard length of him. He wanted her. She wanted him. There was no doubt. In fact, it was the only thing she was clear about. She couldn't think of anything she needed or wanted to do more than to take him to her bed. She shoved the door open, her nerves a jumble, her hand trembling as she pulled him over the threshold. He turned her and pressed her up against the door. She grasped his shirt in her hand, started to undo a button. "To Oliver." It came out like a prayer. Maybe it was. "You are so beautiful, my Victoria." He stroked her cheek, then her throat, and traced a fingertip down to the V of her breasts. Then his mouth went to where his finger had been and she gasped, wanting more and more and more. Her fingers threaded through his hair and all rational thought fled her brain as his hand pushed up under her sweater and unclipped her bra. Then reality crystallized and she pushed his hand away. "Ollie. What's the matter?" He was breathing hard and fast. "Are you okay? Is this okay? I have scars. I'm not as beautiful as you think I am. But, God," she wanted to believe she could be. She put her hand to her stomach wishing this could be different. Wishing she could be perfect for him. "Not here. I am so sorry you were hurt, V. And I really wish, I could have been there for you. I wish it hadn't happened at all." He put his hand over her belly, over the gnarled skin. "But there is nothing you could do or say that would make me believe you are anything but beautiful, inside and out." "But..." He smothered her words with his kiss, one hand stroking her scars, the other cupping her face. He kissed and kissed and kissed her until she didn't know anything except that he really did believe she was beautiful. "You are the most amazing woman I have ever met," he whispered. "I've wanted to make love to you since the moment I set eyes on you." His hand went to her heart. "This is something, right? What we have. This is something." "It is." She fought back tears. It was something precious and special. And time limited. She knew she should have said a million things then, and one of them should have been about the consequences of those scars. But it would never be the right time to tell him and feel the hurt of rejection all over again. God knew, she wished they had more hours, more days, more weeks together, but he wanted her and she wanted him and this could be their only chance to grab something extraordinary. So, when he asked, "Do you want to go upstairs?" the only possible reply was, "How quickly can we get up there?" Beautiful. Her smile was one of satiated satisfaction, even while she slept. Her long, dark hair was fanned over her white pillow, her soft body gilded in sunlight. She looked like a goddess. A queen. His eyes lingered over the silvered scars on her belly that told the story of her nightmare and his heart contracted, shifting and making space for this amazing woman. She was a warrior. He smiled. His Victoria. He'd never wanted to stay with a woman for long after sex, but right now, he couldn't think of a better way to spend his day than here in her bed, under her floral duvet. What did all this mean? He hadn't a damned clue. But it was something profound. Too bad he'd received about 100 messages from his PA and Andrew that needed answers like 2 hours ago, and had to concentrate on that instead of this. Not her. Not us. Wow. That thought blew his chest wide open. He pressed a kiss to her head and tiptoed out of her bedroom, not wanting to wake her despite it being late morning. He needed time to reconcile what was going on in his life with this feeling in his heart. Needed time and space to do some clear thinking, because whenever he was with her his thoughts were only for her, when they should have been on his family, on his business, on everything except a fake fiancé who he'd grown very fond of. Did he love her? He tugged on his trousers, fastened his shirt, rattled at why he needed to get so damned deep all of a sudden. Those kind of questions had never bothered him before. He jogged down the stairs and pulled open the front door. Once outside, he saw that 2 stout and beautifully dressed Christmas trees were standing sentry at the main entrance of the new store. Delivery vans were parked up on the yellow lines and stacks of cardboard boxes lined the pavement. The rest of the stock was arriving. The deal was nearly done. They only had a few days left. And unless he could convince her to extend their deal, the clock was ticking.